Oh, we're back on the air. Sorry about that, folks. I hope you are still joining us somewhere along the lines. As we are back up, we will tweet the fact we're back up here momentarily. If you got questions for us, tweet us at D3Hoopsville or hashtag Hoopsville. Email us, hoopsville at D3Hoops.com. Join us on Facebook, Facebook.com/Hoopsville. We continue to try and figure out these challenges, and we are hoping very much to have these challenges solved for us in the future. All right, so now it's time for our WBCA Center Court segment. Got this note about this said coach saying, hey, probably one of the better coaches when it comes to diversity and other certain factors, and somebody who in the WBCA is pretty well respected for what they do and how they work and all of that. It's something we certainly listen to. We appreciate those points of view. We want different points of view. And the WBCA says, hey, you should talk to this individual. Well, we listen, don't we? I'm actually trying to find my one little note on him, but I can't seem to find it. One thing I do know is the thing that jumped out at me was not only pushes diversity and inclusion and all of that stuff for his program and by default the school, but it's seen by what we're told throughout the rest of the conference as well. So making a bigger impact, as it were. Again, got our attention. We wanted to talk about it, see what that all meant. So joining us on the Hoopsville Hotline, presented by Blue Frame Technologies, a head coach of Oberlin, it is Kerry Jenkins. And, Coach, I appreciate you taking the time to join us.
Hi, Dave. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. I'm going to ask a really open-ended question here because I realize this can come from different vantage points. Right. When someone says that you preach diversity and that you are all about inclusion, what does that mean from your point of view?
From my point of view, it means that while I'm recruiting, I cast a wide net. I try to encapsulate what I see is a representation in the greater society at large. For me, Oberlin is a place that is abundant with diversity. And as a coach, I feel like the best way to be successful is if you run swimming along the same stream as your college. And so for me, in order for us to be successful, I just sort of adopted this mentality of bringing diverse, eclectic groups of people together to find sort of commonality in our humanity. And it's worked out well for me.
That's a fascinating vantage point. Again, because you can take the words diversity, inclusion, whatever you want, and go in 100 different directions with it.
Right.
So I find that I don't think coaches ever don't go out there with the idea of being diverse and not caring what a person is, if they're talented enough or interested enough or fit their school, whatever the case may be. But you seem to go out with from what you're saying, almost with a different point of view. I know I'm going to find talent. I just want to find different kinds of talent, and I'm not talking about the talent of their player. I'm talking about the talent of the person.
Absolutely. It's purposeful. I mean, it brings us together. We have such a unique, intelligent, resourceful, creative bunch of young women, and I think that it's a great environment for me to work in. I love sitting down and having conversations with them about their backgrounds, where they're from, what they were going to do with their lives, like the things that they're interested in. And it's basketball too, but it's so much bigger than that as well. And I think the most unique part about it is really at times bringing together 13 to 15 people who, if they had attended other colleges, might not have had the same levels of interaction with one another, but are forming lifelong friendships. My players, they travel all over the country to visit one another. They sit down and they have these tough conversations about perspective with one another. And it's done in such a respectful way that it creates this bond on our team. But I think it's pretty evident when you watch us play.
So when you have that diversity, though, you can sometimes not necessarily have all of those ingredients come together and mix well.
Right.
You can also have that not happen, period. It's not necessarily a diversity question.
Right. Yeah.
But how do you balance that, or how do you deliver the message of this is our bigger goal? It's not all about W's and L's. It's about other things and growing you as a person through this experience. How do you sell, if you need to sell, or how do you promote that to those recruits?
Well, all of the things that make us unique, all the things that make us individual, all the things that compromise who we are and which define our identity, we have conversations about those things, and we talk about those things, and we get a chance to understand each other at a very personal level. And that becomes the identity of the basketball program. But once we step onto that court, we're just basketball players. And at that point, now we're all trying to achieve the same objective, and we all have the same goal at that point. And we all are moving in the same direction. And I'll be honest with you, it is a very deliberate tact on my part, and it is something that requires time and effort and energy to get everybody on the same page. But when our chemistry comes together, it's just such a beautiful thing just to see all of those different faces and all those different perspectives out there fighting for one another and being best friends and being teammates. It really is a joy to work with, and I definitely look forward to coming to work every day.
In part of this, it's also creating safe space. It's one of the things they said, an open and safe environment for players that is increased competitiveness in the conference. I'll get to the conference part in a minute. But, okay, so you've got diversity, but then how do you then at the same time balance that with the open and safe environment? And what challenges have you faced with that?
I'll be honest with you. There haven't been very many.
Good.
The players have been very receptive, and we have a rule on our team that starts early in the season, and we do this thing called 5-minute conversations, and each player has to come to my office for 5 minutes once a week, sit down and have a conversation with me. And inevitably, that 5 minutes grows into like an hour. It's grown into 2 hours. I've sat on the.
We have that problem here.
Yeah, absolutely. And and safe space has been utilized with a negative connotation at times.
Sure.
But I think that ultimately the way that we define it is a place that you could come in and sometimes have a difficult conversation and not feel condemned or not feel ridiculed, but come in with the open mind to understanding another person's perspective. As we say it on our team, I don't need to understand it. I just have to accept it.
Sure.
And, when we do that, then we create this environment where everybody feels comfortable and everybody feels like they can be themselves.
So the part that I got from some of what we got is fed back to us was it also feeds out into the conference and has made competitiveness in the conference. So what I'm fascinated by on that trick is how has that happened? Is it osmosis where coaches see what you're doing going, well, that's not a bad plan? Or is it a actual, hey, here's what we're doing, you should do it too?
I mean, some of it has been deliberate conversations, but I think osmosis is a good way to do it. You know how coaches are. Like,
sure.
If something's working, we all copy it. And if you've been watching our program the last 5 or 6 years, we've clearly elevated the stature of the program. And I think in some respects, then coaches see that, and then they want to emulate that same tactic, and it's worked out well for us. And I think some of it is I'm very cordial. Our league is very friendly, and coaches help each other out, and we have a lot of conversations. So I've had several conversations with coaching members, and we've talked about some of these things back and forth. But I think ultimately people just start to follow you where you go to recruit. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
so,
sure.
Yeah, I mean, if we're doing well, I know I've seen some of my colleagues at events that were traditionally I would be the only NCAC school there. And now in the last 2 or 3 years, I've seen a lot of my colleagues there at some of those games, and hey, I think it's great for the sport, and I'm all for it. And
come on,
I don't
Coach.
I don't harbor any resentment at all.
Oh, come on! Secretly, you're like, listen, I said be diverse, but go find another gym.
Well, Dave, I will tell you something, and I mean this honestly. I actually had a colleague, and might be insane on my part. She asked me about recruiting, and I told her every single thing that we do. And I'm glad to help because it helps out students for opportunities too. It's not just about my team.
I was about to say, listen, if it means better opportunities, more diversity, better conversations, whatever the case may be, go for it and do what you got to do.
Absolutely.
To some extent, that's a rabbit hole I'm not going to dive into. But bravo.
Right.
Absolutely, bravo. I'm curious what the larger picture has developed. How have these students you've had, and we should point out you've been there, I've lost track.
11
thank you, 11 years. How have the students who you've had over the years, have you seen them manifest this in their own ways? Have they said something to you? Have they done something in their lives where you see this has not just been a cool experience for them for 4 or 5 years, it's really a bigger picture?
Well, I'll say there are two things. The first one really is we don't have any players from the state of Ohio on our team. Our team comes from all over the country.
Fascinating.
And so the one characteristic that I definitely have noticed is that once a player has made the commitment to leave their home and go far away and come play for our team, that trip, never really ends. Like the next thing I know, they go from here to Europe, they go from here to South Africa, they go to here to Barbados. The world becomes very, very open to them. The other characteristic that I see is these lifelong friendship connections that are centered around a sort of multicultural, multi-ethnic, multi-perspective approach where you just see these diverse group of friends. Like this carries off the basketball court too. When I see them walking around campus, I just see a very wide variety of interests, of interactions, of perspectives, the things that they do. They're not afraid to go and interact with people who aren't exactly like them. And I think it's just it can be a subtle influence, but at the same time, I think that's sort of the purpose of it. In the end, we're just all human beings, and we're just trying to do the best we can in this world and fit in the best way that we can.
Sure.
And I think that ultimately sending people out into the world with an open mind and receptive of other perspectives is sort of my bigger purpose.
What's the feedback you've gotten, whether on campus, off campus, other coaches, opponents? Do you get direct feedback about what you've been doing and, for lack of a better description, the mission that you've undertaken with this? Or has it only been something, again, that you've seen and realized, oh, okay?
I think last year it really exploded on me.
Oh, okay.
I think it was something subtle that we were doing, and people maybe were copying it to some degree. But when we won the conference championship and made the NCAA tournament, that really, I think, altered a lot of perspectives and approaches and really garnered a lot of attention. One of our players wrote an article for the student newspaper about our team and our approach to diversity, and it had some really big influences. I've had colleagues call me about the article and said that they read it and they loved it. The feedback has been tremendous. I would say it's been concentrated to the last year or so, but it really has taken off in the last year or so.
That's impressive. 21-8 last season, 13-3 in the conference. You guys are still in the mix this year, 11-7. You're just 2 games. I'm sorry, not 2 games. I can't do math. 2.5 games back of DePaul, who took a hit the other night. You had a pretty good New Year. If you go back to the Ohio Wesleyan game, you guys have only had 1 loss in the last 7 after having a little bit of a rough patch in December.
Right.
How do you see your team shaking out this year?
Oh, we're coming together. We replaced 2 pretty big influential starters from last year. We had the injury bug pretty bad at the beginning of the season. Some of our players are just returning. But we're sticking together, and they're playing hard, and they're figuring it out. And, again, I think our best basketball is in front of us right now. I think if we keep playing the way that we're playing, we're going to be in the mix. I feel confident. I told them at the beginning of the year that last year was a once-in-a-generation magical season. But all paths don't have to be the same. And we don't have to get there the same way last year's team got there. And my players are engaged in the fight. They're engaged in the struggle. They're working hard. We're getting better every day. And I think in the end, we're going to be right back there competing, trying to do it again.
Is this diversity thing something that you've been called on to talk about at conventions like the WBCA convention or elsewhere? Is this something that people want to hear more about, or is it something that doesn't need to have that? Does that, you know what I'm saying?
Right. I both fronts. I agree on both fronts. I think in some respect it's good to talk about it. I know I've done some things on campus. Like I said, this is just starting more to blossom on me in the last year. But at the same time, I think that it's just about being open-minded and creating environments where this is possible and where this can occur. And I think that we can have both conversations. I think this would be great. And I'd love to talk to other coaches about it. I'd love to have conversations about this, about how you can implement this and to your own success. But at the same time, it's about creating opportunities for student athletes. And I think that if you go into these situations and you have this mindset, that it can be really beneficial for our sport, which is a diverse, eclectic sport. And I think it'd be the best. I think it's also good for women's basketball as well.
It may not have an answer to it, but I'm just kind of curious. What's the most, maybe diverse is the wrong word, but the most outside the box type of person that you've had, whether it be location, religion, background? What's the one that's maybe stood out to you?
Oh, I got an easy one. Okay.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I got an easy one.
Wow.
Probably about 6 years ago, I recruited a young woman who was biracial, of Japanese and American descent.
Okay.
And she lived on a Native American reservation in Page, Arizona.
Wait, so she was Japanese and American and lived on a reservation in Arizona?
Yes.
Yeah, it got me on that one. Wow.
Yeah, I knew I would. I knew it. I told you that was easy.
Wow.
Her parents were teachers.
Okay, that answers the question of what in the world were they doing on the reservation?
Yeah, they were teachers.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Wow, that is cool. I like that one. By the way, I see one Allie Driscoll around the neck, try that one again. She's around our neck of the woods here on the Hoopsville studios down there in Ellicott City. It's Ellicott, by the way. How many people say Ellicott around her?
All of them, including myself.
Okay, it's Ellicott. It's Ellicott.
I got it now.
Yeah, hopefully she wasn't affected by the floods we had this year. But that's kind of cool. I just wanted to point, we recognized one of those. So, yeah, I mean, you look at your roster, California, Illinois, Maryland, California. I mentioned that already. New York, Virginia, Georgia, Michigan, New Jersey, Massachusetts. Is there pressure to put someone from Ohio on your squad? Because let's be fair, you're not being that diverse if there's nobody from Ohio.
Well, I had one 2 years ago, and I've had 4 since I've been at Overland. So it's not a willful neglect kind of thing. I know there's a lot of competition in Ohio.
Sure.
There's a lot of opportunities. So
I obviously kid.
I know.
Before we let you go, as part of the WBCA Center Court segment, we always do a question type thing where we always ask the same questions of all our WBCA Center Court guests. That way we hear all the different answers to said questions.
Okay.
If you don't mind. You don't have to overthink them. They can be short, long, whatever the case may be. But, just a little fun for us.
Okay, great.
First one is, what's your favorite thing about coaching, especially in Division III?
Raising and help teaching the future leaders of tomorrow.
Ah, nice answer. What's your biggest pet peeve?
My biggest pet peeve, inconsistency.
Okay.
Inconsistency. I get on my players about that sometimes, but they're generally pretty good about that. Like you gotta show up every day.
Yep, I can understand that. What is your favorite rule or nuance to the game?
I got 2. I love the 4 quarters, and I love the advancing the ball.
You lost me.
Yeah, I love those 2. I'm going to tell you why, because we have hit.
Because you've used it?
We've hit 2 buzzer beaters.
Then I totally get why you love it. Offensively, I don't mind it. I understand it. Defensively, I think I just hate it.
Yeah.
What rule would you want to see added, removed, or changed?
I would love for the women to go to the men's ball.
Really?
One uniform game.
That one I've never, I don't want to say I've never heard, but I haven't heard in a long time. I've always found that the women's hands traditionally on average are smaller, but you don't think that would be a hindrance?
No, I don't think so at all. I think
overthought it.
People have used that. Yeah, people have overthought it. I think it would be a great youth. I think it would be a great youth basketball. I've had some experiences where we traveled abroad with some Division I teams I was with, and we lit the score up. I mean, they shot unbelievably well. Wow. So to me, from that point, it never seemed necessary for us to have 2 different basketball teams.
I will say, when I have practiced with women's teams and used the women's ball, first it took some adjustment because I've got pretty sizable hands. But then when I went to the men's game, I absolutely was a better ball handler. Yeah. But a lot of that same deal in soccer. You practice with a smaller ball, you play with a bigger ball. Right. Interesting. I love that one. Great answer. Any pregame ritual or superstition?
I take a shower.
You take a shower? Well,
before every game. Yeah.
Like literally before the game?
I'll go. I'll do my pregame speech. The 20-minute mark. Teams go out there and warm up.
Yeah.
And then I'll go take a shower.
Wow. Okay. I like that one. That one's going on the list. Craziest travel experience?
Oh, yeah. I barely. This was a sort of a funny one. We went to Colorado last year, and just through a series of inconveniences, I just got stuck in the wrong line, and the lines were long, and the flight was getting ready to take off, and it somehow got delayed, and I was like, I'm sprinting through the airport, ducking and dodging and diving, and that's not something that's really sort of like encouraged.
No, it looks bad.
And so I literally made the flight as they were boarding, and I get on the plane. I'm sweating profusely because I just ran through Denver Airport trying to make my flight.
Oh man, that's a big airport too. Jeez.
Yes, it is. It is.
That's not fun. How would your assistants describe you as a coach?
I think they would describe me as sort of thorough. I think they would describe me as analytical. I think they would describe me to those who don't know me is way funnier than people think that I am. I sort of get ascribed a very serious personality, and I am in a lot of respects, but I'm also have a great sense of humor.
Okay. What do you tell a recruit? This is interesting considering the conversation we've had. What do you tell a recruit that gets them excited or gets them to commit to Oberlin?
The truth.
Okay.
The truth. I mean, I don't hide anything. I don't pretend. I always dispel one myth because every recruit always asks, how do you play? And I think the one thing that endears me to them sometimes, I can guarantee you that every coach that you've asked that question told you that they like to get up and down, they like to run, they like to shoot a lot of threes, they like to press. And I tell the recruit not a single coach that I play against plays that way.
Fascinating.
And yeah, so that little bit of honesty usually gets me over a little bit.
Yeah, I could imagine. Finally, when you retire, and all good coaches eventually will, what do you hope people remember you as a coach?
I think I hope they remember my perseverance. I hope they remember my legacy at Oberlin. I hope they remember me as a good coach. We struggled my first 5 years there, but I stuck with it. Yeah. And we worked really hard, and we turned that into a very good program in the region. And I just hope that people just remember that. And I do hope they remember that legacy of diversity and inclusion and tolerance and being open-minded and creating safe environments that nurture student athletes. And if I'm remembered that way, I'll feel good about my legacy.
That's a pretty good way to be remembered, to be honest with you. Coach, thanks for the time. Appreciate it very much. Congratulations on what you've done so far and the message you stand on, for lack of a better description, the leader that you have become. Appreciate the time you've taken. We always give the coach a final word. Any final thoughts you'd like to share with those tuning in?
No, Dave, it was a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Wonderful. Take care of yourself. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you. Okay.
Gary Jenkins joining us here on the Blue Frame Technology Hoopsville Hotline as part of the WBCA Center Court. Certainly apropos. Wonderful. Listen, we shouldn't have to say, go and be diverse. Go and get the most diverse people you can find. There shouldn't be any conversation to say, go do that. But at the same time, and I think a lot of coaches are diverse anyway. I don't think a lot of coaches I know are not out there looking for only one particular kind of person. That's obviously frowned upon. But to go out and purposely look for diversity first and find a way to make that work with the program, that's just incredible. And we tip our hat. WBCA Center Court segments are always aired on Thursdays. If you got some ideas, you're welcome to send them our way. We've either done them, though I will admit we only got like 1 or 2 slots available for the rest of the year, but you're welcome to send them our way if you have them. We'll take another break. When we come back, we'll keep up with the women's team, head down to Virginia, talk to Southern Virginia women's basketball coach, easy for me to say apparently. We'll talk to Adam Wardenberg about his program. You're listening to Hoopsville, presented by D3Hoops.com from the WBCA and ABC studios. More Hoopsville when we return.
I learned a lot of valuable lessons playing college football. I never thought about the health benefits of exercise until I actually started to talk to coaches in college. It's not only just for performance, it's for life. My coaches instilled the importance of well-being, not only building up strength, mental health, getting enough sleep, eating properly is all what it is to be healthy. I decided that I want to go on a personal trainer and share my knowledge that I obtained in college about physical and mental well-being.
UW-Eau Claire and Mayo Clinic Health System are creating amazing opportunities for students from across the Midwest. Our collaborative research agreement allows students to work with world-renowned physicians and scientists. And with more than 80 majors, UW-Eau Claire is the perfect fit for those who dream big and are ready to change the world.
I used to never really talk, ever. I was afraid if I said something wrong, everyone would laugh at me. But then I started to play golf with Special Olympics. It helped me to find my voice. And now everyone else is speechless.
We've got more schools than Division I, more fans than Division II, and more upsets than March Madness. There's 800 programs with over 11,000 games leading to 2 national championships. And we've been covering it all for over a decade. From Eastern to Occidental, from Puget Sound to Piedmont, from Southwestern to the University of New England, and from Hope to Calvin. Nobody covers Division III basketball like we do. We're at d3hoops.com at www.d3hoops.com.
Great moments are born from great opportunity. That's what you have here tonight. That's what you've earned here tonight. This is your time. Now go out there and take it.
College basketball lives in Kansas City at the College Basketball Experience at Sprint Center. The College Basketball Experience is the place to get your game on. It's not a museum, it's an experience you won't forget. Discover the history of the game in the National Collegiate Basketball Hall of Fame, featuring the Gallery of Honor, Mentor Circle, and Honor Theater. Suit up in the latest CBE logoed Nike gear at the CBE Hoop Shop. Elevate your game today and visit the house that college basketball built.
Welcome back to Hoopsville, everybody, on this Thursday evening. Hope you're enjoying the program, as we always hope. You can always interact with us at D3Hoopsville or hashtag Hoopsville on your Twitter. You can also find us simulcasting the show there on Periscope. You can find us on Facebook at facebook.com/Hoopsville, where, we're also simulcasting the show, and you can interact with us there as well. And you can find us, obviously, online, but email us, hoopsville at d3hoops.com. That's hoopsville at d3hoops.com. So let's see here. When we talk about women's basketball, we have a penance for sometimes missing teams that are flying a little under the radar. And there's a lot of reasons why they could be under the radar. But the reason we miss them is we're always looking at the top. The Thomas Moores, the Bowdens, the Amhersts of the world. We always see the top and then just below the top because that's where a lot of the competition's taking place and catching our attention. That's how teams fly under the radar. If you haven't been paying attention in the Mid-Atlantic region, outside of Scranton, Gettysburg, and maybe one other, you might be missing what's going on in the CAC. This is a conference that's been dominated a lot by Christopher Newport of late. But have you noticed that Southern Virginia is undefeated in conference play? They are 16-1 overall, coming off wins against Salisbury, Christopher Newport, and Mary Washington in their last 4 games. They even have a win over York as they turn into the second half of conference play. Piqued our interest. They also may have one of the players nobody's talking about, and we should be talking about. So today, in a pre-recorded segment, we're joined on the Blue Frame Technology Hoopsville hotline by their head coach, Adam Wardenberg. And, Coach, thanks for taking the time.
Thank you, Dave. Feel honored to be here.
Well, I appreciate that. Again, a little bit under the radar. I checked with somebody yesterday about your team and about some talent on your team. They said, oh, yeah, good last year. And I sat there going, dang it. You know, that I should not hear from somebody good last year, and we're just getting around to talking about them. Granted, you're in your first year, and we'll talk more about that later, but were you all expecting this kind of season at 16-1, 7-0 in conference action?
You know, Dave, I was, and a lot of people are surprised when I say that, but when I got here and started practice on October 15th, I was really excited about a lot of the talent we had, and you know, obviously when you have players like Katie Garish and Alexis Barnes, they make a lot of what I do look easy, but you know, it's a team thing, and we feel like we're going pretty good right now.
Certainly are going pretty good, and we mentioned some of the wins. You also have a win over Eastern Mennonite in the ODAC.
Dave.
Sorry?
So we beat them twice.
Yep. And you guys seemed, well, I was going to say, beat them by 5, then beat them by 2, and you've split up at home and home. And obviously the conference action, though, is where everyone's caught the attention. The win over York, though, kind of retooling a little bit. The win over Salisbury, who's certainly been at the top of the conference for a number of years. But the win over Christopher Newport, I know, caught everybody's attention. It was at your place. Unfortunately, you're going to have to go to their place eventually. But what did
When you take over a program that has kind of been at the bottom for a couple of years, that's a hard thing to do because your players talk, and it doesn't matter how many new players you come in with, players still talk with each other. And so it was about the middle of the second quarter of the CNU game where we had a media timeout and just said, hey, players, ladies, listen, they are not better than us. And you guys know it. And they finally realized, hey, we can play with this team, and they aren't better than us, and we actually have some talent, and we were fortunate to hold them to only 5 made baskets the rest of the game, and that was finally a turning point where they realized, wow, coach isn't crazy, coach isn't lying to us. We can actually win games that we're supposed to, and it's kind of gone from there.
Was that a topic of conversation on the bus? Or you weren't at home. You were at home, so I apologize. But was that a topic of conversation in the locker room later?
Oh, it was. It was a conversation at halftime and at the end of the game, after the game ended, with, ladies, we can have a special season, but you got to continue to keep believing in what you're doing and what our team is doing.
Let's talk about the talent you've got. You're led by a sophomore that I think a lot of people aren't talking about, in Katie Garish. She leads the team at nearly 18 points a game, nearly 13 rebounds a game on top of that, plus 2.5 steals. By the way, she also shoots about 56% from the floor. She's a really good talent that I know a lot of people are starting to turn their eye on. Give us a sense of what she does so well.
A lot of what Katie does for our team really starts on the defensive end. And if you go last night at Mary Washington is a perfect example. She had 9 steals and 6 blocks. And anytime the anchor of your defense can have those kind of stats, you can do a lot of things defensively. And so that's really kind of where she sets us apart is, it's hard to score inside on us. I mean, let alone it's hard to just pass the ball inside when your center has 9 steals. But when Katie's probably biggest asset that people don't realize is not just her first jump, but her ability to get off the floor a second time and get a second offensive rebound that just kids just don't have that ability to do, but she somehow does it. And she's really good at just reading the ball coming off the rim, but her ability to finish and finish through contact is really good. And I think she's shooting as a center. I think she's at 75% from the free throw line, so it's not like when you foul her, it's, I hope these free throws go in. It's almost like when she misses, you're more shocked.
Yeah, absolutely. She's going to earn them some way, whether it's on the floor or on the line.
Oh, yeah.
78% actually from there. And we mentioned, we skipped over it, 3.2 blocks per game. But there's also other players. Alexis Barnes is your senior, double digits in scoring. Savannah Christensen and Brindy Ballum, Corey Stout. There's a lot of other weapons on this team, so that Garish isn't the only option.
Oh, yeah. And that's been one of my favorite things as we've gotten along in the year is you can't just take away one player and then beat us. Yeah, I mean, you can try and take away Garish, and good for you, but then we have Savannah Christensen, who can stretch the floor as our 4. And you have Alexis Barnes, who gets to the basket at will. And Brindy Ballum is a great driver as well. And Corey Stout, our point guard, who just controls the game so well. And we got a lot of different weapons, and I say it all the time. Our greatest strength as a team isn't just one player. It's the ability that anybody can step up at any time and contribute.
I'm curious, what does the team maybe not do so well that you guys are still fine-tuning at this point?
Our biggest problem right now is our turnovers, Dave, but that's something that I'm fine with because I really want them to play freely and know that they're not going to get in trouble for mistakes. I want them to be creative and push the ball and do things that they're not comfortable with. And that just helps them realize that, I can do things that I might not do all the time, but coach wants me to get better. And I feel like that's something that we're good with.
Yeah, averaging about 21 turnovers a game. Most coaches would hate that number.
I'm not super happy with it, but it's something that it's like, hey, it's working for us. And so, you can't complain too much.
Talking with Adam Wardenberg here, head coach of Southern Virginia, who are off to a pretty stout start at 17-1 and 16-1 overall, 7-0 in conference play. It's your first year. We'll get to how you got there, but your first year, how did you get introduced to the CAC, and how did you understand what you were going to go up against in the CAC?
That's a great question. I didn't know what I was getting into in terms of talent in the conference until my first actual conference game. And I was able to kind of watch things on film, but as you know, film can be deceiving sometimes. And so our first conference game was like, oh, okay, this is what we're dealing with, and we got to step up a notch. But I talked about a little earlier. Our biggest thing as a team is realizing that we can play with a lot of these teams, and we got to keep believing in each other and believe that we can do it.
When you looked, you were also new to Division III. Let's be honest. Let's maybe back up and talk about how you got to Southern Virginia. If anyone looks at your background, you graduated from Utah State. You were director of basketball operations there for the women's program. I'll be blunt. How in the world, because you also have some other Western influences, as it were, as well. How in the world did you end up all the way over in the eastern side of the country, and how did you end up at Southern Virginia?
Yeah, that's a good question. It's a little bit of luck, a little bit of just good searching, and a little bit of just connections that I had. Funny story, I got a call from a friend on a Saturday night back in June, and she said to me, "Congratulations on getting the Southern Virginia job." And Dave, I didn't even know that the job was open at the time. And I was like, "What are you talking about?" And she said, "One of my friends has called me, and she talked to the AD, and the AD said that he was hiring you." And I was like, "I don't even know. I'm flattered, but thank you, but I don't know what you're talking about." But long story short, I didn't hear anything more. I didn't hear from the athletic director or anything. And so a couple of days went by, and I was like, whatever. It's just some random phone call. And you know how coaches talk.
Oh, yeah.
And then I think it was a Wednesday afternoon, the athletic director called me, and he said, "I'd love to meet up with you." He happened to be in Utah at the time. And he met up with me in a hotel lobby. We talked for a couple hours. He said this was a great conversation, and I flew out to Virginia that Sunday, interviewed on campus on Monday, flew back Tuesday, and he offered me the job on Wednesday, and just kind of happened really quickly. And my wife and I just loved what we felt here and felt like we were in a good spot to make this move, and watched our players on film and thought that we could do a lot of special things here with the group that we had, and we took the job. It was just something crazy.
How did he know about you?
I still don't know the answer to that question. That's the question I should ask him, but I'm not sure. But he told people he was hiring me before he even talked to me, and
wow,
or at least that's the story. And I guess I won't believe otherwise, because it makes me feel good, I guess.
Yeah, why ruin a good story, right? We don't need to find out the truth. No, we're good.
Exactly.
But the transitions too. You've been in D1, and you've been in the JUCOs.
Yep.
How do this is a different world. Not only is it Division III, which we all know is different than the recruiting world of scholarships and such, but it's a small college, Division III, kind of located in the middle of nowhere. I mean, it's not truly like that, but it's also off the beaten path a little bit. What's your transition been like, and how have you learned kind of by fire?
That is something that I have still struggling with, is just coming from Division I, where it's like nonstop go, go, go.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're not coaching in a game, you're at practice. And when you're not at practice, you feel like you're on the road recruiting. And it's been crazy adjustment, but my kids like it. I can tell you that right now, Dave. No, it's definitely different. The hardest thing for me was getting to my office in the summer and at the beginning until October, and you just kind of sitting in your office and like you're like, okay, well, I guess I can game plan, but I can't work them out. So
right,
like, let's come up with all these crazy ideas, and my assistant and I are just like, what if we did this? What if we did that? And it was like, whoa, like, let's calm down. Like, we haven't even had one practice yet. Already I've got 8,000 things I want to put in. But,
I'm sure that first practice was fun.
Oh, yeah. So, the first practice was fun. I think my players were pleasantly surprised with it, but it's been an adjustment for sure. And recruiting-wise, Southern Virginia is such a great place where we're able to kind of get a nationwide recruiting base. And if you look at our roster, you can see, I mean, we got players from like 12 or 13 different states. And we actually have one player who's from Japan. And so...
Even one from Alaska.
Yeah, we got one from Alaska, one from Hawaii. It's a unique place, but one that I'm grateful for because I can still use a lot of my Western ties and a little bit of my new Eastern recruiting ties, and just trying to get better and trying to find players that are willing to come out here. And it really makes a great team atmosphere because when you have players from all over, they don't really have family that they can turn to and so forth. And so they've really become close and become more of a close-knit family and really trust each other. And I think that's helped us on the floor.
What's been the reaction of the coaches you're up against now in the CAC?
Dave, I think you know the answer to that, but they've been very receptive, and but I think, I hate to say it, but when you go to a place that hasn't historically won very much, and all of a sudden you have a 2-game lead in conference, I think that they're a little upset and kind of wondering, well, how did Coach Adam do this? And like, are you kidding? Like, what did they just like do stuff over the summer? It's like, no, I just showed up and they were good.
There's that 2-game lead's important. You guys could force everyone to have to come to your gym. That's not an easy haul for the rest of the CAC, except for maybe Christopher Newport. That's a significant advantage.
It is. It is a big advantage, and one that, as we talk as a team, we're not looking for ahead at all. We after we actually won our first 2 conference games, I had a couple of my players start talking to me about when the tournament is and things like that. And I was like, ladies, like, listen, it's great that we're 2-0, but we have bigger goals than this, and we can't just sit here and be like, oh, we're in the tournament already. Like, we got to take this one game at a time, and we can't focus on the tournament. We got to focus right now on Penn State Harrisburg.
Yeah, well, that's true. If you let it unravel, you won't be at home.
Yeah. Yep. There's still a chance we can finish in 5th place and not have any home games.
True. And you've got York ahead at home, Christopher Newport, Salisbury on the road, Mary Washington at home, plus all the others. You've got still a lot to do between now and then. Coach, I really appreciate you coming on and chatting with us. Fascinating stories. We'd love to dive in sometime in the future even further and unpack, but we'll let you go for now. As a tradition is on this show, we always give the guest the final word. Any final thoughts you want to share with those who may be tuning in?
Yeah. A lot of people want to know what I'm doing that's so special, and the biggest thing for me is not about me. It's our team, and they're the ones that have to put the ball in the basket. And they're the ones that got to get defensive stops, and I love it because it makes me look good. But my players are something else. They truly believe in each other, and they believe in themselves, and for some crazy reason, they believe in me, and we have a goal, and we really believe we can do it.
Well said, Coach. Congratulations on what you've gotten so far. We will look forward to watching how the team does the rest of the way, and good luck maybe having those games at home this season.
Thank you, Dave. Go Knights.
And go Knights. Thank you, Adam. Adam Wardenberg joining us here from Southern Virginia. Again, they've got a good set of games ahead of them. This is not over. They got 7 ahead still in this conference. It'll be fascinating to see how it plays out. It starts coming up on Saturday with a home game against Penn State Harrisburg. Next week, they've got on the road to Frostburg, which certainly isn't easy either, and then home against York. And then it ratchets up a little bit after that. We'll see how the Knights do the rest of the way. When we come back, we'll get a live update from Orlando on what's going on at the NCAA convention. More importantly, that vote with the Board of Governors. I don't think my idea worked out, but we'll get an update from James Wagner, our good friend Wags from the CSAC. We'll talk to him coming up. You're listening to Hoopsville, presented by D3Hoops.com from the WBCA NABC studios. More Hoopsville when we come back.
We are the coaches of women's basketball. We are leaders and teachers, dreamers and winners. We are professionals who conduct ourselves ethically and with integrity. We place the education, safety, and well-being of the athletes we coach above all else and teach them the fundamental values they need to succeed in life. We are coaches united for the good of our game and those who play it. We are the WBCA.
Great moments are born from great opportunity. That's what you have here tonight. That's what you've earned here tonight. This is your time. Now go out there and take it.
It's on us. It's on all of us. And it's time to act now.
It's on us to start the change. It's on us to be the change. It's on us. It's on Division 3. It's on all of us to stop sexual assault.
Big shots. Teamwork. This trophy is not given. It must be earned. The 2019 NCAA Division III Women's Basketball Championship, March 15th and 16th at the Krager Center in Salem.
Bounces right back with a triple. Great job here. And that'll do it!
Visit ncaa.com/tickets and get your tickets today.
Welcome to Hoopsville. I'm Karen Harvey, head basketball coach at Montclair State University and a member of the WBCA Coaches Association. We hope you enjoy the show. Now back to Dave at the WBCA Center Court.
And welcome back to Hoopsville, everybody. Hope you are enjoying the show. If you got any questions for us, tweet us at D3Hoopsville or hashtag Hoopsville. Email us, hoopsville at D3Hoops.com. Join us on Facebook, Facebook.com/Hoopsville. I'll admit, though, the email may be acting up. I just tested it because we usually get more emails, and I hadn't seen any in a while. My test hasn't come through. So find those other ways. If we have to, we'll fix the email for a future show. So we've been talking a lot. We started the show talking about this. We talked a little bit about it on Sunday. The NCAA convention taking place right now. There's no legislation for basketball right now. We haven't had legislation for basketball in a few years. I think the last time was when they were investigating the idea of cutting the seasons by about 10%. Basketball, ironically, was excluded from that cutback. But not a lot of things you would think would catch our attention. Well, we talked at the beginning of the show about the Board of Governors and the fact that the D1 basketball side of things and the problems that they've had have shook things up. And one of the ideas from the Rice Commission, Condoleezza Rice, was to add 5 Board of Governor members. There's already a 20-member panel. 16 of them are voting. The other 4, like the President Mark Emmert, do not. Division 3's got 2 representatives. Division 2 has 2 representatives. We can dive into the weeds here. There's 8 members from the Division 1 football bowl subgroup. There's 4 or 5 from the Division 1 football championship subgroup. Anyway, the point being is they said add 5 more, but they really shouldn't be institutional. And I said, and granted we came to this idea a little late, D3 should maybe leverage this. Okay, we'll give you the votes to do that, but we need either membership, representation, I should say, or how about a bump to our percentage so we can operate proper championships? You keep bragging about how good Division 3 is, how it's about the student athlete, and how Division 1 would like to model itself after D3. Well, how about you give us a little bit more money so we can model our championships like you do? Something to that extent. It didn't happen. 71% went with it, but apparently the conversation was a dandy. So joining us live from Orlando, Florida, which, to honestly, folks, I'm impressed we got him on the line because there's more to do than sit in a hotel room and talk to us. But Mr. James Wagner joins us from the CSAC, the Assistant Commissioner of the Colonial States Athletic Conference. Sir, I appreciate you taking the time to join us and chat with us.
Always a pleasure, Dave. Always a pleasure.
Thank you, sir. So, listen, the one thing that I really wish the convention would do more often is stream these events, mainly so that we can hear the debates and conversations going on. I got a sense on Twitter that was hard to say that there was certainly some debate. You kind of let me know there was more debate. Let's try to figure out where we should start. Let's start with the fact that this topic was maybe not as slam dunkish as maybe everybody thought it would be.
No, to be honest with you, there's a lot of conversations among the Division III institutions for our conference in general, with our ADs, with our ADRs, and with our presidents on what we were going to do. Obviously, each school has its own vote, and the conference itself has its own vote. And all the conferences were in the same boat, talking with their ADs, and that was the buzz at our commissioner meeting this morning was, how is your conference going to vote? How is your administrators are going to vote? For those of you who don't know how this worked, we had a association-wide business session this afternoon at 5:45. I believe this is the first time they have done it since 2002. All 3 divisions were in the room, the voting delegates, basically the same thing that we're going to do on Saturday with our own stuff at Division 3, but all three divisions were in there. The meeting was opened at 5:45. Bud Peterson, who is the president of Georgia Tech, ran the meeting. He's the head of the board of directors. And, of course, Mark Emmert was there on the dais as well as with some other members. And when the meeting was opened, there was a point of, you could comment to the group about the legislation as it was moved and seconded and was on the floor. I will say there was about 20 people who spoke. Some were in favor, some were against. There were some Division III people that said this is a Division I issue. This has nothing to do with Division III. There were some institutions, some presidents that said we support this, gives it more oversight, more representation for Division III. I would say we debated for about 30 minutes and then we voted, and then it came out percentage. Sitting there thinking that some of these speeches, and I've seen it. I saw it in Indy last year where there was a legislative, there was a proposal, I believe it was for football. I don't remember exactly what it was, that we thought it was a slam dunk. And one person came up and spoke about how the time management, and not much time management, but the hours are going to be devoted by, volunteer coaches, assistant coaches who have families and lives and stuff like that. And the vote turned on a dime. And it was like, okay.
Yeah, I remember that one.
Yeah, we spoke, people spoke, we voted, and it came out that majority was in favor. There was some talk way back in the earlier part of the academic year that this could be used, as you said, as a levering tool to say Division I, because it had to be passed by all 3 divisions.
Right. Because we should point out it has to be by all three divisions because it's an overall governance thing. It's not a specific to D1 thing.
Yeah, it changes the governance structure of the NCAA. We're now adding 5 more members, and these 5 members they're working on now. They're going to use an outside firm in conjunction with the board of directors to find 5 people who have no affiliation with any institution, just members of the general public. And there is one gentleman, I believe it was the president from the University of Minnesota, said that non-for-profit institutions do this all the time. Yeah. They have boards who have people from the outside that help.
Schools do it, Wags.
Schools do it, yes. And after the discussion and after the vote was taken, and the way that we're thinking, okay, this might be close. This might be 60-40 percentage. It might be 55-45. But when it was 71-29 and it was overwhelming, you're like, okay. So that has moved forward. That has passed. It will be effective, I believe, August 1st, 2019 or July 1st, 2019. It will go into effect. So the Board of Governors will have 10 people, the 5 more people that they'll have. And there was, as I said, earlier on in the year, there was talk of using this as a leverage tool. As you know, the NCAA gives us 3.18% of the television money to fund our championships. And as you pointed out earlier, there are some enhancements that have been coming down the line, and even the slightest bit of funding bump, if it goes to 4%, it goes to 5%,
right?
That is in championship experience. I will tell you from the when I was working on the volleyball championship this year in Pittsburgh, I was chosen as an alternate for the national committee. One of the things that they had talked about was community service and putting more teeth in community service. Now you're going to have to send a team out an extra day early. Where is that funding going to come from?
Right.
If you make that rule, the travel staff then has to decide, okay, how much money do we have to ask for so that we can bring a team out an extra day? You're talking about extra day hotels, meals, ground transportation.
Absolutely.
So it was kind of a little bit of shocking that the vote was that high, but it was a great topic of conversation. There were some really great speeches, talking about how passionate they were about Division III and how this wasn't a Division III issue, wasn't a Division II issue. Maybe we should put the schools, make them responsible for what has gone on. And there are some schools that have done that. There are some schools that have not done that.
Right.
But now that it's passed, and now we will see who these 5 members will be and who these 5 members that will come on the board. We're always looking like, and from some of our presidents have said, okay, how do we get our people on the board? How do we get people that we know that are good at this stuff, at the nomination process? So the NCAA will start to go work on that, and it'll be a very transparent process. The President's Council will keep us abreast of the situation, and now we move on to our legislation on Saturday. We'll have our issues forum tomorrow, and then we'll vote Saturday morning. So it was an interesting meeting. It was right after Dr. Emmert made his State of College Sports address, which I will get to in a minute, because there are a couple of topics that have been discussed here at the convention the last couple of days that are hot button issues. And talked about how the NCAA now has this opportunity to kind of get into the forefront of some social issues that are still going on. For those of you that know the history of the NCAA, the NCAA was founded over 100 years ago because of deaths in college football in the early part of the 20th century.
Interesting and ironic.
Yeah, player safety is a big part. Regulation and different things that we have done. The NCAA has been, on the forefront of civil rights issues in the 60s and 70s with integration, obviously with Texas Western winning the national championship in men's basketball. They talked about that today. But there are some topics that are starting to come to the forefront that the NCAA is trying to get out in front of, and that was something that Dr. Emmert talked about today, and that's been the buzz that has been around the convention the last couple of days.
Well, we'll get to that in a moment. I want to go quickly back to the BOG thing. First, I find it ironic that someone says this isn't a Division III issue. Yes, the problem isn't a Division III one, and it's not a Division II one. It's clearly a Division I problem. But the BOG is a Division III issue. The I don't understand why someone would go up there and say we shouldn't be involved in this when I would, as a Division III member, absolutely want to make sure I've got a foot in the door and a say in all of this, because it also makes Division II and Division III, we're lumped into that NCAA word.
Well, I should say it wasn't like the Division III, not the Division III issue, was because of the Division I scandal. That's what they were referring to. Okay. Division III men's basketball had nothing to do with what went on in Division I men's basketball.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, and there are some people out there like, look, if this gets Division III another foot in the door in Division II and helps us get more funding and more resources, then it works.
But has that chance gone? Is the leverage point now history? Because as I saw it was, you can use this right now and go, listen, D3, D2, we're not voting for this unless you make sure we have a voice of that group, because those 5 members outrank all of us, because we've only got 4 combined. And D3, I don't know what D2 wants, but if we were to match D2's money, we'd gain $12.5 million per year by last year's numbers. That is a ton of money when you look at it, because just one gender spends $12 million in championships. That's all of those championships in Division III. To gain $12.5 million would be a windfall in Division III. So I feel like, great, but now it's been voted for. Haven't we lost the leverage?
I can't say that for sure. I mean, there was talk among some people about using it as a leverage tool, but and there's also the danger that, and we didn't vote by division. That was the thing. I thought we were voting by division. We voted all as one.
I wanted to get that there too. Yeah.
Yeah, they voted as one lump sum. So there was talk of that, and I will be interested to see. Now we have to sit back and wait to see who these 5 are going to be. And see if this in the next 2 or 3 years. And again, it's all dependent upon, there's talk of renegotiating the TV contract again. And
yeah, because the current contract doesn't expire till like 2025 or something.
But they want to re-up it again to change the numbers again. So I don't know. I mean, I'll be interested to see what we get. I mean, there could be they could decide, okay, maybe the funding comes back and they decide to bump us and so we can have more money for championships. I don't know. I mean, it was talk of using this as a leverage tool, but I just think there was enough teeth there. I mean, some people were like, okay, let's pass it. It's going to pass anyway. And
that's the thing, is I think if Division III thought this through, they would have known that, hey, we got 450 votes.
Yes.
We just have to talk to half of D2, and we've got them. Well, to be honest with you, yes, D1 and D2 combined, but you just talk to half of D2, and we've got all control here. I think that was a missed chance. Let me ask you this. You talked about it being divisional votes. I saw several times today, everyone's like, well, first time in 11 years it's been an all-division vote. I was at the last all-division vote. It was for women's beach volleyball just a few years ago. So that's a misnomer. The other thing is, I know why we voted for this on Thursday, Wags. The NCAA wanted to make sure the media is talking about it on Friday, not voting Saturday morning, so they can't talk about it until Monday because they'll lose interest to talk about it on Monday. And as a result, you don't have a traditional convention where the divisions can talk about these issues as groups before they vote.
Yes,
I feel like this was shoehorned to some degree, even though we all knew it was coming. You guys only had a certain amount of time as a group to be with each other to talk about it. Exactly. You didn't even have the issues for them to talk about.
No, we haven't. We haven't had the issue. We'll have the issue for them tomorrow morning. And this was a topic of conversation at our conference level, on all 3 levels of our conference. I'm sure every conference in America had the same kind of conversations. And each school had its own vote. And we told our institutions, you vote however you want to. And, you're right. It was shoehorned in there. We had it at our business session on Thursday. We didn't have it tomorrow afternoon when a lot of the conferences are meeting. And then Saturday is when we all vote and leave. Well, except for the Division I. The Division I's are done, and then they've voted. But it was interesting timing. But like I said, 71-29, and it's gone through percentage-wise. And now I'm just sitting back interested to see what is going to become of this. But there were some other topics that Dr. Emmer did talk about that have come to the forefront.
I'm interested because one of the ones I remember him going to. Well, you had the awkward moment where he was talking to all 3 presidential council heads. D2 talked about how they had a windfall of money and were expanding their championships. They turned to the D3 president at the time. She goes, well, we're in a deficit and we're cutting back on our championships. And you could literally hear the D3s, which was about half the crowd, going, uh-huh. So those always come up with some interesting moments. Mark Emmert saluting the student athlete in the sack was another one I remember. So there are always some interesting nuggets that come out of that. I'm curious what he said today.
So the two main things that we have talked about today mostly is, number one, what is the future with sports gambling? There is probably in the next 2 years, 33 out of 50 states in this country will have legalized sports gambling.
Yeah.
And how is this going to affect the student athlete? And I had a conversation this afternoon with somebody on the management council was talking with me and my boss about, okay, is it going to get to the point that a roommate of a student athlete is going to go out and place a bet on a game, going to place a bet on the game that their roommate is playing in? Is it going to get to that point? You have sports gambling is starting to take off rapidly.
Yeah.
Being in Pennsylvania, there's a new sports book opening up every 2 weeks. And the revenue involved for the states is a giant windfall. Once they figure out how to tax this, it's going to be a windfall for the states.
Well, we're catching up to the rest of the world to some degree, but at the same time, right? I mean, this is all new.
Yeah, and the thing is, there's going to be any type of legislation coming from the federal level that protects student athletes. Are we going to have bookies hanging around Division III schools when Division III schools start to get on the betting wire? Is that going to happen? It may or may not. I don't know. It's taking off so fast, and the NCAA is staying in the forefront of it and just saying what is going to be the future of the NCAA. Again, the old rule was if you sponsored any kind of legalized sports gambling in your state, you couldn't have an NCAA championship.
Right.
It bit New Jersey about a couple of years ago because they lost a bunch of championships.
Right.
Now do we get to the point, and there was a story somewhere, I forget where, that Las Vegas is clamoring for NCAA championships. You and I both know if they hold any kind of NCAA championship in the city of Las Vegas, it will be a sellout. People will go to these things.
It'll be a slam dunk.
A slam dunk.
You could put two opening weekend events in there at two different sites, and they would both sell out.
You have the new arena in downtown Las Vegas, the T-Mobile Arena that holds 19,000. You could hold basketball games there, no problem.
Perfect.
I don't know if I was walking over somebody. I don't know if the new football stadium is open air or not. I think
believe
it is
it's closed air. I'll double check while you're talking, though.
So are we going to get to a point in 2025, 2026 to the Final Four is in Las Vegas? 100,000 people. That's a giant windfall for that city. But then again, now you have people betting on the game and going to the game. So that's the topic. There were a couple of panels today about that. The other one is the emerging esports. How is that going to figure in? I mean, 5 years ago there was one team. Now there's over 165 teams. The students are already on your campus that play these games, the League of Legends, Fortnite, or whatever. And for the first time today, I heard I'd say interesting comments about these games, that they are, they are violent. First-person shooter, that they are
true.
They are primarily played by men, and diversity in those games. And again, my 10-year-old son plays Fortnite. I have no idea what Fortnite is.
Yeah, my son plays it too.
Plays it with his friends, and it's my son has autism, and it's good for socializing with other students, and it's great. But these schools are investing this money in these computer labs and computers and playing games, and the NAI has signed off on it. High schools have signed off on it. The NCAA has not signed off on it yet. And one of the reasons why is these students get paid to play these games. They win prizes. How do you regulate that?
Yeah, true.
I'm saying it is coming down the pike. I mean, there's conversations on our conference about esports, that some of our schools have it.
Some of them have, yeah.
Is the CSAC going to have esports in 5 years? Possibly. It could come down the pike there. I know the Big East has a league. I know the Big Ten, they televise their championships, so it's very interesting there. So who knows?
By the way, to answer your question, it is a closed, but it has the capability of opening up some windows in Vegas. Okay. So yeah, no, absolutely available for the Final Four, to say the least.
And then the only other thing that I heard of today was, and I forget where the story was, is that there's been some talk about the NFL not covering teams as far as catastrophic insurance.
Yeah, I read that today too.
Yeah, and that eventually is going to start trickling down to our level, and that's going to affect schools.
Well, and some insurance companies are backing out from insuring football.
Yes, and that's a big thing that we worry about is, football being a violent sport, are we going to run out of people that are going to insure football teams, and what's the future of football?
Couple legislative things that you will vote on Saturday at what should have been the regular vote. Let's see. I know there's football, just in case any football fans are tuning in, about changing their preseason. What's the toe in the water feel if that's going to pass?
Well, only one school in our conference has football, Keystone. Of course, they don't play. They're going JV next year. They're going varsity in 2020. Not really too sure we just kind of vote however Keystone wants to vote in that point, or we abstain. There's always something coming up with football every year, acclimation.
Yeah, it is.
And there's another one with soccer and field hockey. I think and the thing about acclimatization is that we talk about with our institutions, it's also a financial obligation. If you're going to bring your students in 3 days early, that's 3 more days you got to feed them, that's 3 more days you got to house them, that's 3 more days you have to bring staff in. So all these have a financial impact, and it's not required. If the NCAA says you can bring your student athletes in 3 days early, you don't have to.
No, certainly, no.
You can come in. But then again, you're like, okay, well, if School A's doing it and School B's not doing it, then School A's has an advantage. So it'll be interesting to see how that goes. I mean, it all depends on what the school's financial position is.
So far, the NESCAC's the only one who's able to say no to their coaches. I'm thinking basketball preseason practice. Yeah, soccer and field hockey have that up for debate too. I've heard that may not pass.
Yeah.
Same reasons.
Exactly.
And then social media. You think social media gets opened up a little bit for D3?
I think so. I think so. I mean, it's only a matter of time.
Sure.
I mean, it's just so hard to regulate. And I get these questions about, can I do this? Can I do that? And I have a chart that tells you what you can and cannot do. It just gets to a point where you can just change. Just open it up. They're probably already doing it now anyway. Just open it up and it'll be fine.
Let's see here. Someone asked. Oh no, I'm sorry. How many more? Oh, Andrew, I'm not sure what you're asking me, my friend. I don't know how many more what, sir. Try and ask me that again. Final question would be, just from a CSAC point of view, sir. You guys are in your first year with the new CSAC, for lack of a better description. How things settled down? How's everybody adjusted to the new? And I know you got some other changes coming. St. Elizabeth joins next year, from memory serves.
Yes. Correct, yes.
But how's the conference transitioned into its new life, for lack of a better description?
I think it's gone really great. I mean, we've got a great bunch of schools that are working very well together to improve the conference, the new CSAC. The 5 that left, they're in the Atlantic East now. They're enjoying their conference, and we are enjoying what we have with the 9 schools. This year, I can tell you from the fall championship standpoint, we had every school represented in at least one championship, and that's excluding the cross-country championship that everybody goes to.
Right.
All the team championships, we at least had one. Each school had one team in at least one of the championships. Keystone won field hockey and men's soccer. I was there for both at La Plume, and it was great to watch the Giants win a championship for the first time in those sports. Notre Dame won in volleyball. I had a great experience. I was at Juniata when they were for the volleyball regional. And then we had our women's soccer champion, Centenary. They won a championship. They beat Cedar Crest in a great game. So it was a really good fall championship season. So far in the winter with the basketball, Rosemont women's basketball is doing a great job. They're undefeated in the league so far. They're doing it. I believe I think they had a game tonight. Probably won. I have to check the scores. And the men are wide open right now. With 7 teams. Cairn, they've done a very nice job. Got a great team. They're playing well. Centenary and Keystone, they had some early troubles, and they've won some conference games, so they're getting back into the mix. And Rosemont, with Coach Bobby Hughes, is hanging in there. They had a big win over Arcadia on Monday night at home in their last non-conference game of the year. Very good Arcadia team, coached by Justin Scott, I might add. So there's a lot of parity in our league, and in coming forward now into the spring in men's lacrosse, we welcome the NJAC schools in. Kane, Montclair, and Stockton will come in and will join us as associate members, and they will compete for the at-large bid. We'll have 7. Baseball, we are added the University of Valley Forge. They will come in and they will give us 7. St. Elizabeth will be in next year. Wilson's the first-year program. Women's lacrosse, we have our members in that one. That should be a nice conference. Softball will be interesting. I look at, before the CSAC, you could look and see, okay, I could put Cabrini on men's lacrosse every year in the plaque already. I could order because they would win so many games. Now I don't know who's going to win men's lacrosse. I don't know who's going to win women's lacrosse. Baseball, it's probably going to be Keystone, but there are some schools in there that will give them a ride. I'll give them that much. Softball. But it's nice to see that these teams are competing, and it's going to help their programs grow. Once you get in the NCAA tournament, and I say this for Notre Dame in volleyball, when I was at the national championship, I was talking to Kim Kelly, who was the coach at Carnegie Mellon. And now they had an opening in their tournament at the end of the year, and I said to Kim, why don't you bring Notre Dame out? And I told Notre Dame, look, these opportunities are going to come along now that you've won a conference championship.
Yeah.
The things we want you to do, you need to build your schedule up. And so it's been really good. Like I said, all 9 schools work together. St. Elizabeth actually does come to our meetings. They have paid their dues ahead of time, so they are invited to our meetings. And we want their input coming forward as we get schedules done. Track, we just added Alfred State, and Alfred State wants to compete for a championship. Obviously, track's not an AQ sport, but they'll come down for one meet a year. There'll be Alfred State, Penn State, Barron, Franciscan, or 3 affiliate members, plus Keystone. Cedar Crest is adding track next year. Notre Dame is going on board now. So we'll have a nice track championship at Keystone. And it's just about opportunities we can give our student athletes and a chance to compete for a championship. So the landscape for us has settled down right now. We are secure in all of our sports with our AQs. So, and like I said, all our schools work together. What do we need to do to get things done? What do we need to do to enhance our championships? And they're all for that. So we have our meeting tomorrow, 1:30. Likewise, most of not all the Division III conferences have their meetings at that time after the issues forum, after the association luncheon. And then we will vote Saturday morning. And then all of us will depart. Some of us will stay in sunny Florida for another day. It did rain this morning, but it was nice night. It's about 56 degrees, 60 degrees out in Orlando right now. So
enjoy it.
Yeah, but CSAC life is good. The conference is in great shape, and we're moving forward. And our schools are working together to get things done.
Just so you know, it's going to be brutally cold by the time you get back here to the Mid-Atlantic region. So that's my gift to you for enjoying Orlando's weather. That's what I figured. I get back 10 o'clock Saturday night, so it'll be quite frigid. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Hey, Bud, appreciate the time. Thanks so much, and we'll catch up with you. I have a feeling you might be making an appearance next week just because you love our happy hour.
Okay, that sounds good. I'll be around.
All right, Bud, take care. Thanks for the time. Appreciate it.
Always a pleasure.
Awesome. He is James Wagner. Appreciate him taking the time to join us, as he always seems to. If you got, we're going to wrap things up here. A couple of notes. First, we're going to quickly go through the women's top 25 results. Also, a couple other notes here and there as well. Let's see. First off, hats off to Steve Moore at Worcester. Win number 750 for just his time there, if you can believe it. He's won now 837 games overall. He's now won 750 there at Worcester. Congratulations. He is also going to be a member of the 2019 Ohio Basketball Hall of Fame induction class, and he will be honored about that on Saturday. So congratulations to Steve Moore. I got this little note about MIAA men's basketball. Olivet won at Calvin for only the 13th time in school history and for the first time since 2009. You have to go back to 1986 for another occasion. So Olivet men winning at Calvin for the second time since 1986. That is incredible, to say the least. Prideful moment. Goucher Catholic re-engaged familiarities yesterday in their rivalry, per se. I have yet to do the full math on this, but I believe it was only the second or third time in that rivalry that dates back to when Goucher entered the CAC, I think in their third season, and that was late 80s. I could be wrong. Early 90s, I'm sorry. that both teams entered the game below 500 with records. The last time I know was in 2010. I can't remember if it happened twice in that season or not. And then I'd have to go really deep dive and figure out when the last time it may have happened. Ended up being a dandy of a game. Goucher tied it on a steal and a three-pointer with 3.2 seconds left. Actually hit the three at the buzzer. Forced overtime in a game, by the way, the first half was all about runs. Second half was all about back and forth. And then overtime, and Goucher ended up winning it in overtime. So the first time Goucher has beaten Catholic since, I think it was 2013 or 2014. First time they beat Catholic at home since 2003. Guess who the Catholic head coach was in 2003? Mike Lonergan. So Steve Howes has won every time Catholic has come to Goucher until last night. Mike Lonergan loses his last season at Catholic, his last road game at Catholic. That was the last time Goucher won a game against Catholic at their own place, which goes, by the way, into the joke. It used to be that Catholic always won at Goucher. Goucher always won at Catholic. And so Catholic's place was the SRC North, Sports and Recreation Center North, and Goucher's location was nicknamed Dufour North. Or I'm sorry, SRC South and Dufour North. It was a running joke between Pat, myself, friends of ours like Ray Martell, and the like. It was just fun. So it was nice to see that kind of game have a little bit of a shot in the arm. And you go to the Olivet there with Calvin. Pretty impressive. Speaking of the MIAA, tune in next Thursday. Big news, surprise announcement. Check in with us next Thursday. During the marathon show, which we point out will air a truncated version. We're going to go noon to 8 is our tentative schedule now. We're putting everything together. I know it shouldn't be tentative a week out, but for personal reasons, we've had to make some tough decisions on this show. To be honest with you, I even debated about just killing the marathon and doing a traditional show on that Thursday. But we're gonna go with a longer show. Most likely 12 to 8 will be our game plan, maybe 1 to 9, something like that. It won't be the full 12 hours, personal reasons, a lot of things behind it, but just understand we will get out more information starting hopefully tomorrow and then early next week. And we got some great guests lined up. We look forward to having that show. Women's top 25 quickly, rather quiet. First time we've been able to say that all year. DePaul, we mentioned earlier, lost to Wittenberg last night, 65-61. Interesting enough, they've got Oberlin coming up. We just had Oberlin's coach on the show, so DePaul's schedule isn't getting any easier. Misericordia had their first loss of the season. They lost to Kings 80-70. They'll have FDU Florham coming up, but Misericordia taking their first loss. They still haven't even played DeSales because of weather. That's coming up in about a week and a half or so, I think, off the top of my head. Otherwise, nobody took any losses. By the way, breaking news, Thomas More has a game this week. They will take on Geneva on January 26th, their 23rd game of the season. A receiving votes category, Eau Claire lost to Oshkosh. Hats off to Oshkosh. Women are really playing well. And Loris lost to 18 Wartburg. No surprise there. Loris is a good team, but Wartburg's a pretty solid team right now, to say the least. Thank you, Mark, for the kind words. Appreciate that. There was something else I thought. Hold on, double checking. Thank you, Andrew. Let's see here. There was something... swore there was, I guess, not that important. My blog's out for the top 25, by the way, if you missed that. That one is out as well, so check that out. Oh, it was email. I was going to double check, see if we got any surprise emails. I don't think so. By the way, Wags appeared on the Blue Frame Technology Hoopsville hotline. You should point that one out. All interviews on the Hoopsville hotline are courtesy of our partners at Blue Frame Technology and their industry-leading production truck software. Is your college ready to showcase its teams through a reliable and innovative video streaming service that won't break your budget? Blue Frame's advanced digital broadcast tools will help take your broadcast to the next level. Learn more today by visiting www.blueframetech.com and tell them that I sent you. Make sure you mention us and the show when you give Blue Frame a call about your streaming needs or your production needs. You can get that production truck software without streaming with them, but why not stream with them as well, right? That's going to wrap us up. We're going to get off the air here. Sunday, back on the air, 7 o'clock Eastern. And again, a week from tonight, we will be on the air, most likely done and dusted already with the marathon. But look for the marathon show coming up next week. And with that, I'm going to double check we don't have anything else before we wrap up with one last thing. Yeah, I guess that. Oh, by the way, Elmhurst had was it Augustana on the ropes, and a technical foul. 2 technical fouls cost them that game. Really interesting what's going on in the top 25, folks. There is a lot of good teams. We didn't get a chance to really dive into it today, but a lot of good teams in Division III, and it is worth tuning into, to say the least. With that, I want to take a moment to, well, first off, Nazareth's men's basketball coach died late last week. We didn't get a chance to mention that former coach. He ran the Wendy's Classic, and our hearts are out to the Nazareth family. But one I did want to mention was Gallaudet's assistant coach, John Perry, who passed just the other day. Unbeknownst to me and many others, he had been in a coma for several months after taking a fall and apparently suffering a head injury. John was an alum of Gallaudet University, played with them in the early 90s, played with them to success. Their first conference win against Catholic in the CAC, I should say in conference tournament action. They went on to play Goucher. I remember that game pretty vividly. John ended up being a longtime assistant coach on and off again for the Bison. I can't think of very many times where I saw the Bison where John wasn't on the sideline. He either had a smile, he either had something nice to say. I interacted with him not a lot. I didn't get to know him very well, but I always knew he was there. I always knew as a public address announcer, he was the one signing the information to the team, knowing like introductions and stuff. He ended up being the connection between, officials and staff and whatever players. John Charles Bird Perry, graduate of 96, died after being in a long coma just the other day. Our hearts and thoughts go out to Gallaudet, and we will leave on that note. This show presented by D3Hoops.com from the WBCA NABC studios. We appreciate your time in tuning in, and we hope your thoughts are with John and his family and the Gallaudet family as well. Good night, everybody.